right. Hey, welcome to another edition of Covered, where we shelter you with roofing knowledge. The purpose of our podcast is to try to educate homeowners about the roofing industry and just make them more knowledgeable. So I've got a special guest with us today, Dana Walters, who is an independent adjuster, right? And how long have you been doing this?
13, 14 years.
Okay. All right. That's quite a while. So I'm sure you've seen a lot in that time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, just so glad to have you take a little bit of time out of your day to come in here and, talk to us. And
I like what you're doing here. I try to help homeowners every day. That's one of the reasons I like my job.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of different type of adjusters out there and different contractors. And it's good to probably try to get opinion from different people and help homeowners.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, it's good to just have an outside perspective, rather than just hearing from a roofing contractor and, just kind of getting that opinion only,
Sure, since the adjuster's the other part of the key component of the claims process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we're having conversations with homeowners, and we're recommending calling in a claim, we always tell them, like, at the end of the day, we're not the ones that make the decision. If the adjuster's going to come out, they're going to either agree with what we say or they're not, so there's different outcomes, but before we kind of get into the weeds with that, just tell us a little bit about, like, your background, how you decided to become an adjuster.
Let's see here. 2000, it was right after 2008, the market crashed.
That's right.
I was
real estate,
I was in the car business. My family had a lot of rental properties, so we were managing rental properties.
Okay.
And I think I got laid off by my own father's company because things were getting pretty bad. And a contractor came in and said that he was thinking about moving over to become an adjuster because a lot of the general contractors got wiped out after 2008.
Right. Yep. Builders.
Yeah.
A lot of
he was a builder,
affected.
custom home builder.
Okay.
One of the houses that he built for was an adjuster, and that guy was talking him into coming over to the insurance side. And I heard him telling my father about it. I was like, man, that's exactly what I want to do. Sounds like a lot of fun because you can be outside under the sun part of the time, and then you can also make your own schedule. Yeah. And then at the same time, at least back then, before I had my little girl, there was travel involved. Yeah. Potential to make good money, and then you're also helping people because it's an emergency type of situation a lot of times.
So when you started out, were you like a CAT adjuster? Which is known as a catastrophe adjuster,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's the best way to cut your teeth as far as someone getting into the insurance adjusting business. Okay. If you don't have much experience, your probably best bet is to start at the CAT level because they're just going to send you all over the country, right? And they'll work you to death. I always recommend people try to go through the staff, probably the big insurance companies, and get on with them first in order to build a resume. Yeah. I didn't do that. I did it the harder way by becoming an independent. Yeah. There was a big company down in Charlotte called RGMW years ago, and they've sold out since then. But they had like a school at their office where they were trying to train adjusters and get people on their roster so they could grow. Sure. And I got on the roster. Of course, I wasn't getting any claims or anything, and I wasn't able to build my resume. Yeah. So you had to sit and wait for a catastrophe to come along. Okay. Once something like a Katrina or something comes by, and it's huge, it sucks up all the insurance adjusters, and there's a need for the work. Sure. So they'll throw somebody in the fire that doesn't have much experience. Okay. And that's kind of how I got my experience. Okay. So did you, like, as part of the requirements, to like shadow another adjuster, or? That's a good question. Yeah. So you would get your license, which, you just take a test for the state. Okay. And then you went and took this class. There's some claim services out there that offer classes, and they give you kind of like a rudimentary level understanding of the claims process and
Sure.
inspections and stuff. But yeah, the real best way to do it is to ride along.
Okay.
And we did ride-alongs with different adjusters for a couple weeks, and then it was just kind of sitting around waiting for to be thrown in the fire.
Yeah.
I have trained people since then, and I've trained people. I usually try to keep them riding with me almost on a daily basis for about a month at least, so they can get used to it and understanding everything. And then you have to learn the software too. Xactimate,
yeah. And then there's the other one, Symbility. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep. That's now like bought out by CoreLogic or whatever. Not that we have to get deep into that, but so those are the two primary different softwares that the industry uses to write up estimates for claims, right? Not just roof claims, but
mostly Xactimate. There are some that are using Symbility. That's kind of something you can take classes on that too. Yeah. There's things online you can learn. You kind of get thrown in the fire on that too, to get a knowledge about it.
Yep.
It's about the best way to do anything is doggy paddle.
Yeah, that's what we find as a contractor. A lot of times we can see a scope of work where it might be, somebody that's maybe newer in the industry because they've left off so much obvious things, and then, we go back to the insurance adjuster and ask them for the additional items that they might have missed or whatever, and I mean, like real obvious, like they didn't put any pipe boots on there or no box, vents or, that kind of thing.
So are you doing your own supplemental work like that?
So we just do it in-house. Yep.
You are?
Yep.
Did you think about doing a third party?
We actually tried. Yeah.
How'd that go?
Not so good.
Really?
Yeah. Because a lot of the third party, what they, they make money on the difference of what they are able to get approved, and so a lot of them, unfortunately, they just try to throw a lot of stuff against the wall and hope that it sticks because they're wanting a higher claim payout, and we would get a lot of times, we're like. Adjusters would contact us, and kind of crossing their eyes going like, hey, what's the deal with all these different line items that, we know that you didn't do or you're not going to do.
So it ticked them off?
Yeah, so it obviously upset them, and we're not, here to try to, spoil the apple cart, right? So we want to do things the right way and honestly do the work that's on the scope of work, and not just try to, beef up a claim just to, earn more money, just do the right thing, right? So that's our approach, to things. So we don't supplement every job because it doesn't need it.
How well is that going for you doing it in-house?
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah, it's going good. Yeah. Especially with the experience that we have now, and kind of getting a feel for like different carriers have different guidelines on what they're allowed. I think it starts out with the initial, like maybe a desk adjuster or whoever that frontline person is that's writing the scope of work. They have a certain authority level to approve things, and beyond that, they typically have to get a supervisor involved to get an exception made because their job could be on the line. Especially if they don't have the proper documentation.
Takes a lot of labor, I guess.
Yeah.
You have one person doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we have a couple of people that set eyes on. Yeah. So some of the obvious stuff, we'll have Zoe, our office manager, do that.
Is it all day job? Somebody's doing it all the time?
No, again, because a lot of scopes come back pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not looking for.
So you don't have to what's your percentage you think you have to supplement? Just to pick your brain.
Maybe I would say on the high end, half of them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I would think it'd be more than that. Okay.
Yeah.
How often do you get? I'm interviewing you.
Yeah, that's fine.
How often do you get approved for that supervisor charge I see on all the supplements? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know what the actual percentage is.
Do you get it approved sometimes?
But sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Certain carriers are approving that.
Yep.
Wow.
One thing that really has worked out pretty well is like on a hip roof. If the adjuster approves a couple of slopes. Because the manufacturer's instructions, say that, hey, you can't, like the felt has to go into the adjoining slope at least 6 inches. So in order to do that, you have to rip off the shingles on that, the hip there and the adjoining slope, the shingles there. And so are we
Does that work for the ridge too, or is it just the hip?
So just on the hip. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, we send them the IRC code, and first we ask if the policyholder has code coverage, and if they say yes, they do, and they follow IRC, whatever 2019, whatever it may be, then we just find the documentation, send it to them, and typically we don't get a lot of pushback, because it's we don't try to argue opinion. We argue facts. Right?
So to help the layman here, and me maybe, what you're saying is, if you have an estimate that's went through the insurance claims process and it's approved, but it's not approved for the entire roof.
Right.
And this type of roof is a specific type of roof. It's not a gable roof where there's only two sides.
Correct.
It's a hip roof where there's typically four sides, right?
Yep.
And you only have approved for, let's say, half of that, right?
Yep.
What you're saying is there's code that requires the slope that they have approved to tear into a slope that's adjacent to it.
Correct. Yep.
That is not approved because
right.
it has no damage.
Right.
And what you're saying is you can actually have a good percentage of a chance to get that additional slope that had no damage approved at a later time through the supplement process.
That's right. Yep.
I see. Because of code.
Yeah, well, because the code says that they're required to follow manufacturer's instructions, and the manufacturer's instructions specifically state that that's what we have to do in order to properly re-roof that roof.
What is IRC? Is that a state code? Or
yeah, so the International Roofing Code, I believe, is exactly
so it's not state
for.
code.
No. Yep. And there are local, county codes that a lot of times the adjuster will say, hey, if you can provide like with drip edge or ice and water requirements, if the local county requires it, then they'll ask a lot of times for documentation of that. And I think a lot of carriers do have it on file. But we had mentioned earlier on in the conversation that with a CAT adjuster, because they travel all over the country, they may not know. Yeah, they don't know what the local, county, codes are and that kind of thing. So the more that we could do on the front end to provide help there makes their job a lot easier. And that's what we try to do.
So they usually acknowledge that and honor the IRC?
I would say more times than not, yeah. Again, because, you got facts, but sometimes, I feel like they're really good at, some of them can be good at twisting things around and say, oh, but this, but that, and
I got
try
one
to
that,
get out, from paying.
They won't follow that. They only follow state code.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yep. So, yeah, that's why we ask, like, hey, what is it what's the guideline that you go by? And then we go back, and if they say IRC 2019, then we go back to the IRC 2019, pull up, what the facts are, send it to them and say, hey, by your words, you said that that's what you go by.
Hey, that's a big part of your game. It saves you a lot of money, for one, and then two, it can also benefit the homeowner a lot of times. If you're getting the rear slope bought, it could be an enormous square footage. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And we just try to do right by everybody and be fair. So and we know insurance companies aren't hurting. Not that's some of them are.
Yeah, well,
I've seen some go out of business.
Yeah, I mean that's not like the motivating, ultimate motivating factor. Like, okay, well, we're gonna just try to get everything that we can because we know that they have deep pockets. I mean that's certainly not the case.
Well, some of them, which ones I'm talking about. They must be hurting because they've changed the way they've.
Oh, right. Yep.
State something.
Yeah, these mystery guidelines. Yeah, exactly. That seem to change all the time. Well, continuing on. So, what are the most common types of roof claims that you currently handle? Because I think maybe some homeowners might think, oh, okay, so we filed a claim for the roof, and even when I first started in the industry, I thought, oh, okay, well, this adjuster just does roof claims, and then when we had a tornado come through and there was a lot of interior damage and all that, and then they went in and they assessed all of that and wrote up a scope of work that was not just a roof. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not a separate adjuster that comes in and does the does drywall and like the floors and that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, this person actually knows a lot.
So what's the question?
So what types of roof claims, like the most common types of roof claims do you handle, or just overall, what kind of claims? I mean, do you mostly do roof claims, or are you doing a lot of fire? Or
well, I'm an independent adjuster. What that means is I don't work for a specific insurance carrier.
Okay.
I represent the insured as well as the insurance carrier, which a staff adjuster has that fiduciary duty as well.
Okay.
At least they're supposed to.
Okay.
But I'm certain it's probably harder for them since they are beholden to only one boss, whereas I have a bunch of different insurance carriers I work for. I try to be fair about it.
How many would you say?
90% of my work's probably coming from 4 or 5 the same
different
people.
Carriers? Okay.
Yeah, but
okay.
you know, I could get one from 20 different carriers at any time.
Okay.
It just depends.
So why then
That's me as an independent.
Yeah.
So if you call, let's say Nationwide out there, normally if they send a Nationwide adjuster out, that's a staff adjuster going to come out in a Nationwide car, in a Nationwide shirt.
Yeah.
They work specifically for them. It's possible they could send an independent adjuster who handles nationwide storm claims, and that's all they handle.
Okay.
But they're still an independent adjuster, and they work for a claim service that contracts with Nationwide. But you know, they're still representing Nationwide.
So why would a carrier have like, well, we use independent adjusters versus like we only use staff adjusters? Why do you think?
Well, staff adjusters, they have to pay a salary.
Okay.
And it makes a big difference.
Okay.
Whereas 1099 an independent adjuster.
Okay.
It kind of ebbs and flows with a lot of insurance companies. You'll see over the years they'll go huge with staff adjusters in a region, and then they'll kind of start saying, let's go back to the independent claim service model.
Okay.
And you'll see it go back and forth. It just depends about the area too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to keep a staff adjuster in some remote areas because they don't have so many claims.
Oh yeah, that
it depends
makes sense.
on how many policyholders they have in that area.
Okay.
So you might have a lot of people for Farm Bureau right here, so they have a State Farm. A Farm Bureau staff adjuster. But a lot of times, if they get overloaded, they'll need a claim service to help them with that claims.
So they partner with those type of individuals or companies.
So sometimes they'll do, when they get overflow, they'll send it to another company. Other times, they don't keep a staff adjuster in that area, so they just use a claim service in general for that area.
Okay. So
some insurance companies might not really carry a staff adjuster hardly at all, and they just kind of use a claim service for everything. And they use different claim services all around. Just depends. Okay.
So can you tell our listeners and the viewers the different types of adjusters? So obviously you're an independent adjuster. We've got a staff adjuster who works specifically for that particular carrier, whether it's State Farm, Allstate, or whatever, Farm Bureau, and they don't do any type of adjusting for any other carrier, right? Yep. And then I know like there's desk adjusters, then you got public adjusters, that kind of thing, and then we have ladder assists. Who's not an adjuster, and sometimes I think like I've seen, where I've been on a job site, and a ladder assist will, show up, and the homeowner thinks they're the decision maker, and so just kind of talk to us about the different types of adjusters, what their roles are, and then like how does that different from the ladder assist, and what because I see more and more carriers moving to that. Probably I would say 7 out of 10 times we see a ladder assist instead of an adjuster.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Let me try to map that out. As far as North Carolina goes, they're all under the same license. We all get the same license. Notwithstanding a public adjuster, I think they're probably a little bit different. They have to be recognized as something separate because a public adjuster only represents the insured. It doesn't represent the insurance company at all.
Okay.
Whereas an independent adjuster can represent all sorts of insurance carriers.
Okay.
And then you have a staff adjuster that is beholden to just one insurance carrier.
Okay.
As far as ladder assist, which is kind of a newer model over the last probably 5 years or so, they're not licensed by the state at all. They're just inspectors.
Okay.
They could not be qualified for anything, just be somebody that they hired that's willing to go up on a roof and take some photos.
Okay.
You've probably had that experience some.
Yep.
I've heard some horror stories about sending some newbie ladder people or virtual, and there's a virtual inspectors too.
Yep, where they'll like FaceTime you almost, and then you have to just show them through the phone, and then they're capturing the image
and
somehow.
There's a desk adjuster on the other end, and they're just kind of holding a video camera. Is that what they're doing?
Yep, I've seen that, yeah.
I can't imagine how dangerous that is for some people who aren't used to being on roofs.
Right.
And then trying to maneuver around a roof and it's hot. Can you imagine August and then not knowing what you're doing?
Right.
I would imagine that model is probably not going to make it for very long.
Yeah.
It's probably costing them a lot of labor, but they're probably like testing it out, trying to find different ways to cut costs. Sure. They're definitely not trying to make the best claims process, probably. Mm-hmm. The best being, sending a staff adjuster out and they're writing a check right there in the driveway. Yeah. They're still figuring it out, and you got the drones too. They probably got drone teams.
Yep. Yeah, right? We've seen that. I think I've seen some carriers kind of like they were starting that way, and then I guess maybe they weren't as accurate, and so then they did away with it. Probably because a lot of times the contractor will, if we get a full denial when we feel like we have a really strong case, then we'll ask for a reinspection, get a second opinion, right? Because it's like, maybe that person that came out just isn't as familiar, with what we see, So, I mean, the homeowner has the right to do that, and I know that a lot of times the perception is, oh, well, the contractor is just trying to make money, off the, the deal or whatever. And obviously, whoever's in business, you have to make a profit, right? I mean, you are in business to make money, but also for the homeowner, though, I mean, you're trying to do the right thing for the homeowner and get them a new roof when you see that they definitely should.
There's a couple of things there. One, everybody's in business to make money. It's a little bit different as far as the insurance industry, because it's licensed by the state. Sure. And they are limited to a certain way of making money, how much money they can make. Mm-hmm. They just can't be like you and price whatever they want. Yeah. Otherwise, they could be taking advantage of people with insurance policies. Yeah. When you have an insurance policy, you kind of have a fiduciary duty to protect people. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. So they're not just out there making a certain amount of money. They do have shareholders in some cases. Yeah. And they do probably watch the bottom line, right? Yeah. So if they get hit with a lot of storms, their actuaries all of a sudden have missed the market. They're gambling basically, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't say that they're all about money. But it does feel like that some of them are watching their bottom line, and they're definitely putting commercials out there on Super Bowls and college football games and stuff. Yeah. So some of them are out there about money more, but I wouldn't say it's the exact same as somebody in a retail business or something. Yeah,
and what I was referring to is like the contractor. Like the motivation to. If you got a full denial when you feel like you have a strong case, right, to push for a reinspection, yes, at the end of the day, if it does get overturned to a full approval, will the contractor then make money? Of course, but that's not like the standalone only reason. Maybe for some, but for a homeowner, where you're like, man, I mean, roofs are not cheap, right? And if you see like, man, they have the damage is there, it's super obvious, and we just had a bad, set of eyes on this. So let's get a second opinion. And a lot of times, it does get overturned to a full replacement.
I want to talk about the reinspection thing. But first, like I run into that a lot too with homeowners. Yeah. And they're, if I do a denial or something, which is always tough, right. Look at somebody and tell them something they don't want to hear. Yeah. But, especially when there's a lot of money involved, and then you have a contractor telling them, "Hey, there's damage or whatever." Right. A lot of times they'll say to me, not a lot, all the time, but they'll say, "Well, all you care about is making money or something like that." And I'm like, this is kind of not the way an insurance professional should be looking at it at all. It should just be because they represent the insured as well as the insurance carrier. So it should just be like, is it there or is it not? Right. But some insurance carriers, and I'm going to go into that, are a little bit different. So I had the experience with one of the big ones. Mm-hmm. This was a couple years ago when I filed a storm claim. I guess it was 2 years ago. We had a January storm. It was snowing and stuff. Okay. We had huge wind. Okay. I had like 10 trees come down, took out my fence, my deck.
You're talking about your own house?
Yeah, my own house. Yeah. And, they sent out one of their storm team. Yeah. And it's one of the ones that we all kind of don't like these days, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah. And I've been with them forever, and they've always been good. Yeah. This is when they started changing. Okay. And the first thing that adjuster came on my property and he said, is this a wind claim? I said, yeah, we have wind damage. He said, well, they will not let me buy the roof for wind damage. Do you want to file a hail claim? I'm like, it's January. Like, I want to file a hail claim. Right. He's like, you haven't even went up on my roof and seen how much damage I have. Yep. I got 10 trees now. I'm like, you're telling me that you're not going to buy the roof? He's like, he knew I was an adjuster. He's like, sure. Look, they told us that we can't write for a roof when it comes to a wind claim. Wow. No matter how much damage you have, you'll have to try to supplement it in order to get it completely approved for a replacement. Wow. And I'm like, you haven't even went up there. The adjuster didn't even get up on the roof. He gave the camera to my roofer, and my roofer took the photos, and they wrote a $500 repair estimate for like 50 wind damage shingles. So, and then I asked for a reinspection. You said, you know, they're entitled to a reinspection. That's right. I always thought that too, but I've never seen it in writing. This big company would not give me a reinspection. They denied me a reinspection. Wow. So I don't know that a homeowner is entitled to that for certain. I just assumed it because I've always told people that, but then I had my own personal experience where they said no. And I fought them for a few conversations, and they kept denying me a reinspection, even when I said your roofer didn't get up on the roof, and I think that you missed stuff. So finally I told them that I was going to take them to appraisal. I was going to call the DOI. The first thing I was going to do is get a video of my roofer trying to repair the shingles. Sure. And then I was going to take them to appraisal. And they immediately, as soon as I said that about repairability, they sent another adjuster out. He bought the entire roof. There you go. And it was it. I don't know why, but that's kind of the game that insurance company played.
And so I think because they know that they will win more times than lose, that they, you know, most homeowners will just give up, you know, and honestly, most homeowners,
they're watching the bottom line.
Yeah, well, and they perceive that the insurance, you know, carrier and the adjuster, it's like, okay, they're a licensed adjuster, you know, versus you have, you know, this, you know, Joe Bob Roofing Company, right? Like the authority and the knowledge and all of that really is right. You know, we see them on TV, you know, spend billions of dollars advertising. So the perceived, you know, notion is that, well, it's the insurance company is the one that has the knowledge, you know, they're the ones that's wise. They know what they're doing. This contractor is just trying to make money.
You're also paying them to protect you.
Yeah.
So that's what insurance is all about. Yep. So I mean, like, I was paying this insurance company to protect me, and in this situation, they were kind of taking advantage of it. So it does happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think, man, I've only went down to like 2 or 3 questions on here, but that's okay. We're gonna keep rolling. No, this is great. So can you explain exactly what it is that you do, like on the property when you're called in to look at a hail or wind claim? Okay. So like kind of walk through your process, because it's not just a matter of just setting up the ladder, walking up on the roof and just saying, oh, okay, well, yep, I see some, you know, hail impacts, or yep, I see missing shingles. And, you know, sometimes too, maybe you can talk about this, homeowners think, because when they're looking at their roof from the ground, right, particularly, well, for both wind and hail, but for some reason with wind, they think, well, I don't have any missing shingles, so I don't have wind damage, you know? And it's like, well, I mean, you might have creased shingles. That's right? So what does that look like, and what does that mean, and all that kind of thing.
Or a hole in the roof.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the squirrel ate, right?
Or a tree limb hit.
Yeah, right. So I love that. Well, I think it was the acorns, you know. I was like, oh, pretty heavy acorns.
I've seen squirrels do some damage.
Yeah, sure. So when you show up to the job site, you know, what do you typically do? Like, you know, kind of walk through your analysis of the entire property.
Well, as an independent adjuster, I don't have a final authority. I'm not writing a check. Okay. I'm basically putting together a report. Okay. And I'm doing that with photos. Yep. And then I'm also going to write a narrative explaining every person that I talk to, who they are, and what we talked about. Okay. And then I'm going to give them my opinion of what I found. Okay. And I'll usually try to represent what the other person, let's say as a contractor or the insured, what they said or what their opinion is. Okay. So I try to give the person who's making the coverage decision and writing the check at the insurance office I'm trying to give them all the information about what happened there because there's not a video of it. So the first thing I do is I come out, and we like to do this in a specific order, and we walk around the house, the exterior, from right to left, and we try to take photos of each side of the house, and if there's damage there, we try to take photos of what's damaged as far as storm damage. Okay. If there's a lack of maintenance or something that's an underwriting issue, we try to document that for the insurance carrier because that's important. Okay. And then if the contractor or the insured points something out that they think is damaged, try to document what they're pointing out to so that person knows, especially if there's a disagreement or something. Yep. You also want to document the type of materials that are there sometimes if there's something different, Sure. So we walk around the sides of the house and then we get up on the roof. Okay. And you kind of do that in a specific order too, So
you always start on the ground, walk around. And the term that often gets tossed around is collateral.
Collateral damage.
Right. Yeah. Like, do you see the dents on the downspouts? Right. Do you see dents on the AC units and that kind of thing? Because that kind of tells the story, right?
Yeah, I like to show or say that it's evidence that hail was present. Right. Although you know this as well as I do. Sometimes downspouts don't get damaged by hail. That's right. It comes straight down. Sure. Or there might be trees and stuff. Yep. Or there's big soffits. Some people have 3-foot soffits, and it doesn't affect the downspout. But yeah, I personally, if I see stuff like that, I'm trying to tell the story of what's been there, or wind damage too. And the same thing for the roof. You just go into in a specific order of the photos, so whoever's looking at it that wasn't there, they can make sense of the story that we're trying to tell. And I personally, if there's damage, I try to show there's evidence, or if there's not damage, I'm showing the same thing. Look, there's no dents on the downspout. Look, there's no dents on the vents of the roof. There's wind damage here, and there's wind damage here. There's wind damage not here, and there's not here. Okay. And it's important to differentiate different parts of the roof just as well as the house, because the front of the house is the front of the house. If it's damaged, it doesn't necessarily mean repair would affect the right side or the rear side. Yeah. So each side has its own authority. Sure. So the front is the front, the rear is the rear. They look at that separately. Yep. Yeah, and on a scope of work, it's often front elevation, rear elevation, left and right elevation. Right. They use the term elevation, just meaning right side, left side, that kind of thing. We know that, but a lot of times homeowners don't know, like, what elevation are you talking about? Yep. So, so then when you're up on the roof and you're looking at like a wind claim, for example, versus a hail claim, right? So with the hail claim, you'll do what's called the test square. Yeah. Right? On every hail claim, I'm looking for wind. Okay. If I'm on a wind claim, I will look around to see if there's hail, but it wasn't filed for hail, just to show or document, hey, hail's been here. Okay. But it's not from the same date. But if it's a hail claim, I'm looking for wind no matter what. Yeah. We do a test square. We use chalk. Yep. It's basically just drawing 100 square foot area and trying to show the person at the insurance carrier the ratio of damage from hail to this area, to this side of the roof. And we do that just by looking at a 10 by 10 square and then counting the amount of damage within that square.
Yeah. But you don't do that for wind damage though, because that wouldn't make sense, right? Because you could have that wind like all over the place. But hail, it makes sense, because if you've got 10 plus hail impacts in a 10 by 10 area,
it's in the other areas
logically it's not going to just all fall right here, right? Yeah, exactly. But wind is different. Yep. So you analyze each slope separately, because for a lot of roofs, each slope can be just replaced without the other slope.
That's right.
Right. Okay. So that's kind of the guidelines.
You can get half a roof.
Yep.
You get a quarter of a roof. I've seen that before too.
Yeah. Might not look the best, but but it's definitely there. So, have you found, since you work for a lot of different carriers, did they tell you kind of like what their guidelines? I won't ask you what they are, but do you kind of know going in, like when you're making your assessment, if let's say that one slope has 4 impacts versus 12, right? Do you kind of know going in, like, okay, I'm doing this work with this particular carrier, and I know that they're looking for at least X amount?
I've seen some carriers do that.
Okay.
I've seen them come up with an algorithm.
Yeah.
Same thing with wind.
Yeah. Okay.
This much square footage, this much damage, and you have to do some kind of math or something. Okay. Some insurance carriers do that. Yeah. And they try to streamline their claims process. Most of them don't. They just ask me to go out and give an opinion. Yeah. No one says, if there's less than 5 hell marks within a test square, we're going to repair it. They kind of just do it on a claims by claims basis. Okay. Because the age of the roof makes a difference. Yep. The size of the roof makes a difference. Yep. Which slopes were affected, how many facets there are, all that stuff makes a difference. So, I would say, generally speaking, they do give us a set of guidelines, but they don't tell us exactly how much.
Like the magic number is or anything like that. Yeah, I got you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But makes sense. To comment on that, there are some times where we write for a repair versus a replacement, and they come back to us and tell us to change it, and vice versa. Yeah. So, it just comes down to their opinion. Yeah. And it depends on who's making that decision at the insurance carrier.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking through whether I'm going to make this comment or not, but I can say it because I'm not going to mention any particular carrier, but we have had situations where the insurance adjuster would show up with like the ladder assist, right? And they will tell the ladder assist, hey, we're buying this roof. So just want to let you know.
Before they look at it?
Yep, we're buying this roof.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so of course, we don't ask questions like, hey, what made you decide to do that? We're just like, hey, that worked out really good for the homeowner, worked out good for us, that kind of thing. So I don't know if it's, maybe a client that has multiple properties, or maybe they just already kind of assessed a particular area. I remember working an old hailstorm down in South Carolina, and one of the carriers, they threw out some kind of like code or something, and said like, hey, every house in this particular like fenced in region, just automatically, if they call in the claim, that they know they're just going to approve it. They're not even going to send an adjuster out there, because it was like super obvious, like baseball size hail, what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, well, why waste the time, and
they just send contractors out sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Like send us your photos and your estimate, and we may approve it, that kind of thing. So that just seems like it streamlines the entire process, and I know it's not a common thing, but in a big storm event, then I'd say more common.
Yeah, I've heard about adjusters going out there and doing it and just going ahead and saying buying the roof.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis what happened to me, where he came out and said we're not going to buy it before he even looked.
Right.
It just depends on the insurance carrier and what year they're going through. And then sometimes it's the claims adjuster itself, because you get smaller companies, and maybe you've ran into this. Some adjusters are really tight, and then other ones are like loose and they buy everything.
Right.
It just, you never know.
Yep. Right. That's right. Yep. All right. So can you talk to us about maybe some of the key steps a homeowner should take immediately after experiencing roof damage? So like once they become aware that they've got some issues. So what I'm leaning towards is some homeowners, I think, feel like, well, I'm just going to wait. And now, you're 3-4 years past the quote unquote date of loss, so what happens in that kind of situation?
Oh, okay. So that's kind of two questions. The date of loss matters, at least in North Carolina. You can't wait past 3 years. Or it's reached this limitation.
So that's a North Carolina thing, or is that a carrier thing?
I think it's a North Carolina thing.
Okay.
Although, like, I have a couple carriers that I work with, and they're smaller companies, and that's usually where you see this endorsement. An endorsement is a change in the policy. Okay. Something that the insurance carrier or the homeowner might put on their insurance policy that changes the original policy wording. Let's say you have a wedding ring, right? Mm-hmm. You might put an endorsement on there to add coverage for a wedding ring.
Okay,
but there are other endorsements though that take away coverage and exclude stuff.
Okay.
And one of the endorsements that I have with some of the companies I work with is they put an endorsement on every single one of their policies that states that you have to file a claim within a certain time period.
Yeah.
It's 180 days, which is 6 months.
6 months. Yep, I've seen some of that with different carriers, and it's like, whoa! Especially the first time it happened, we're like, nah, that's got to be a mistake. I never heard that, and it's like, no, it's definitely true.
And at some point, they sent a letter out or explained it to the homeowner, and the homeowner probably didn't download it and doesn't remember.
Yeah.
So data loss does matter for the homeowner whenever they have a loss. If you ask me what I think that a homeowner should do in the case that they think that they have a storm claim, I would try to talk to a contractor before filing an insurance claim. I'd try to find out how much damage is to my roof and what's the chances of getting the entire roof replaced versus repaired. Because if you only have a 5-year-old roof and there's not a whole lot of damage, it's probably not smart to make your rates go up.
That's right. Yep, that's right. And that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because we work with different insurance agents who refer us because because we want to lead not with just like, hey, we're going to go in here and automatically think we're just going to file a claim. No, we're going to see if the roof is repairable, and if that repair is less than their deductible. Well, it doesn't make sense to call in a claim, right? Just to your point, potentially their rates could go up, depending on how many claims they filed in the past. And I don't know what all goes into the deciding factor of, whether their rates are going to go up or not.
You're a good contractor then, because I see a lot of contractors not care. They do throw stuff against the wall.
Right. Like, you know what? Let's just see if we can get you, a new roof, and it just wastes everybody's time. And then, now the homeowner has a claim on their record, that's not going to go away.
Yeah, they're confused.
Yeah, exactly. And they get frustrated and that kind of thing. So
I see it every day.
Yep. So, but now, all right. So, on the subject of date of loss, right? I've heard not too long ago, actually, this other thing called. Let me make sure I get this right. The date of discovery. Because so, if you're a homeowner, like if I'm a homeowner, and I didn't know that I had any kind of damage at all, and I got a roofer that knocks on my door and says, "Hey, let me take a look at your roof. Potentially, you could have some damage," and man, we see some damage, right? And the homeowner's just now made aware of that, right? So when they call in a claim, and I do know that the customer service person is always asking for the date of loss, but if the homeowner truly doesn't know, can they use what's called date of discovery? Is that even a thing?
Well, I don't think that nomenclature is probably codified in the policy that I've ever seen. That's something that we might use sometimes when we're referring to a date that we're not using as a date of loss.
Okay.
And we do that in our reports.
Okay.
Or when we're discussing something.
Okay.
They're going to have some sort of a date of loss when they file the claim.
Yep.
So sometimes the homeowners guess. Sometimes the contractor gives them a date.
Yep.
Sometimes the customer service person just looks it up online and gives them the last date. I would say it's not it can be changed.
Okay.
It does come into play with hail sometimes because you could have a claim that's got a hail date and you got hail damage and it's outside of that 3-year period. Right.
Yeah, right.
So it does come into play there. When it comes to wind, though, normally there's been a wind event recently,
right.
So they'll just go back to the last wind event.
Okay. See, I've seen before, and going back to like some of those adjusters are really tight, and those that are a little bit more loose, where we have called in a claim for a particular date of loss, and they would say, nope. They don't agree that particular date of loss had
you have to file another claim.
like wind damage, right? But they say, well, no, actually they say, but there is hail up there, and there definitely 100% is hail damage, but we are going to deny the claim because the way that it was called in was wind damage on this date, even though we see the evidence of hail on this date. And so that then you kind of scratch your head because we've seen other adjusters do the same thing, but they just say, we're just going to change the date of loss, no big deal. And then they write it up for, either a repair or the replacement. Whereas some adjusters, have in the past not done that, and they just deny the claim altogether.
Well, that's a whole different conversation probably to have in general.
Yeah.
But to touch on it, like Some insurance companies are extremely strict.
Yeah.
And they're trying to save money.
Yeah.
And they don't mind sticking it.
Mm-hmm.
If they have the right. If you filed a claim for a certain date of loss,
yeah,
they don't necessarily have to adjust that date.
Yeah.
They do sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they decide not to. That's just their prerogative.
Man, so how does a homeowner know that though?
They don't. That's why you should probably talk to a contractor and make sure that you have damage.
Yeah.
Maybe get some information about that insurance carrier, which a contractor usually knows.
Yeah.
Like, man, this one's really tight. We run into this. We need to make sure that we have a good date of loss.
Yeah.
There's hail reports, and a lot of the insurance carriers these days are going to go by that CoreLogic benchmark hail report, and that will pinpoint down to the mile. The last dates of any size hail, and they claim that it's accurate, and they stand, and there's been so many millions of dollars invested in it, so now they're just going to say, well, this benchmark says it didn't fall within 3 miles of this date, and then that's their evidence to deny. But I've seen it the opposite way too. Hey, there's been hail within 3 miles of there. Dana, we're just going to go ahead and buy it. Yeah, I've seen it both ways.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It just again depends on the carrier. So that kind of thing. Yep.
So the homeowner could have the contractor pull a hail report, and that could help them in the situation too, and they could have more evidence before they file the claim.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good answers, man. This is a good conversation. All right, so let's kind of move on to some of the common issues and mistakes that homeowners make. So what would you say are some of the common mistakes that a homeowner makes when filing a roof claim?
Let's see. I think they get a bad contractor. Yeah. They don't have damage.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll conflate damage, from different dates of loss. Mm-hmm. That makes it difficult. It makes the carrier, the adjuster, probably less susceptible to, being giving if they're just pointing out this and that and this and that and wanting to claim every problem on their house, especially if there's long-term damage or something. Yep. A lot of common mistakes by a homeowner are, not taking care of their property. It can get them dropped by their insurance carrier if they're not maintenance it, and they file an insurance claim, and the insurance carrier comes out there and they say they're not taking care of it. So a lot of times they might want to make sure that their deck's fixed or something before they file an insurance claim.
Man, I don't know if you've heard this, but we've gotten a wave of calls from specific insurance carriers and clients where they've received letters in the mail saying that they're going to get dropped because they have the black streaks, the algae on their shingles.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, quite a bit. I'm not going to mention
Everybody
the carrier.
Has that, right?
Yeah, but so it's really flooring a lot of homeowners. They're like, wait, what? And they're like, how do you even know that I've got black streaks on my roof? They said that they're flying drones over their house and they're seeing it. And
they must want to drop those people for some reason. Yeah. And then just using that as a reason.
I think so too. Yeah, because we recently came back from a roofing convention, and they had some bigwig insurance people out there, and they've done like fortified roofs. I don't know if you're familiar with like out in the coast, a certain type of build. But as they've done their tests in their labs that are outside, where they've simulated like a lot of strong hurricane winds and that kind of stuff, they know that roofs that are over 10 years of age, with like 60-mile-an-hour winds, the seals are breaking, and it's way more likely to get, I think like 80% probability
cost of money
to have wind damage. And so a lot of carriers are even changing their guidelines to say like, hey, if your roof is over 10 years, your policy now is converted from a RCV policy to an ACV policy, and then we've seen recently also where deductibles have gone up, considerably as well, like a percentage of the value of the home. That's more out in the coast, but we see it kind of creeping in this way as well. And so sometimes, as we're making suggestions to the homeowners, we're saying, hey, like that's a real thing that's out there right now. We feel like you have a really good case, so might, really strongly consider calling in a claim, because of those reasons. Because if you don't do that now, kind of like strike when the iron's hot, right? Is that they potentially could get to an ACV situation where they're not going to get that full depreciation,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
I see that model a lot. That's an endorsement. Because you're changing the policy.
Yeah.
And they're putting that on there. As far as deductible, I think that North Carolina in general could probably start doing that. Mm-hmm. I think that's an endorsement situation too. Yeah, it just depends on the insurance carriers. But I mean, that they have that right.
Yeah.
If they're sitting there going, looking down, that's what they do is look in the future, and they're like, we're going to have this much, and it's going to cost us this much. Let's go ahead and put it on the homeowner and try to save ourselves some money. Yeah. And the homeowner should be maintaining their house.
Sure. Yep.
So I could see where the homeowner should have some skin in the game, and they make that decision.
So when a homeowner, a lot of times I think with roof claims in particular, there's a lot of contractors that will go around door to door, and because they're looking up dates of losses through different software that they use to identify where storms hit, right? Going back to your point, maybe the last 3 years. So it could have been 2 years ago, so the homeowner's not, they don't really recall that. But a lot of times, you'll look at, because the roofs, they don't self-heal, right?
Right.
So, if there was a little bit of damage 2 years ago, most likely it's going to show itself a little bit more because, of just the environment, the sun and all that stuff, right? And rain and, wind and all of that. So when a homeowner decides then to, on a contractor, and I know you've seen a lot of them, right? And I've heard a lot of stories, from different adjusters that, certain carriers, or not carriers, sorry, contractors have the reputation for going up and creating damage, particularly with wind. They think, some of the newer sales guys, they'll go up and increase shingles and all that stuff, So what advice would you give a homeowner in terms of identifying a reputable contractor that they really truly can trust? Because when somebody just knocks on your door, and we do that too, right? It's like, how do you really know that they're interested in you and the best outcome for you and not just their commission?
I mean, Google reviews pretty important to you guys?
We have we have a perfect 5-star rating right now. Yeah. So it's very important. Yeah.
I've always heard Google reviews is pretty important to contractors. Okay. How long they've been in business. Yeah. It's pretty good. I've seen people ask to speak with customers who filed insurance claims from them before.
Yeah. Okay.
When they're shopping around.
Some references. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sometimes asking people in the neighborhood or HOA. That's about. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. Yeah. And it is a shot in the dark with some of these door knockers. Yeah. Yeah. I would tell a homeowner. I would be a little suspicious if there's if they're out of state. Okay. Local contractors would always recommend somebody. How long they've been in business. And then go look online, Better Business Bureau and Google Review. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So those are things that we recommend to homeowners as well. It's like, hey, don't just take my word for it. Do your due diligence. We want them to actually look us up because they're going to find nothing but good things, right? And of course, we always will be more than willing to provide references. They could ask their adjuster too if they file an insurance claim. If they're a local adjuster. They should probably have a good gauge on contractors. I don't know all of them, but if I know a bad one, I'll definitely say something to a homeowner. Oh, okay. Okay, so you'll just kind of give them a little warning. Yeah, they don't like for us to recommend contractors. Yeah. But let's say it's you guys or another company that I feel comfortable with and has always been helpful. Yeah. I think that they're in good hands. I'll say a good word or something. Hey, I've met these guys before. I've been on a lot of roofs with them before. They've always been helpful. Okay. I've never heard anything bad, stuff like that. Yeah. Something to help the salesman out a little bit in that case. Okay. And then, if I feel comfortable with them and the homeowner, I'm like, look, your contractor should guide you through this process. Yeah. They know a lot about the insurance claim. You should lean on them. Yeah. I try to help them out a little bit. Sure. But I don't think a lot of adjusters do that.
Yeah, and I've heard that even from insurance agents where they said that like their company policy is they can't say, go with 5-star roofing. They're awesome because if they end up having a bad experience or something like that, then it's like their reputation is, on the line. So
there's a lot of CYA.
So, yeah. Exactly. So, all right, well, let's kind of dig in, and we're almost done here. Like policy details and coverage. So what aspects of a homeowner's insurance policies are most relevant to roof claims?
So there's endorsements that we talk about.
Okay.
Data loss endorsement.
Okay.
ACV endorsement.
Okay.
Probably want to know that before they file an insurance claim.
So what's the difference between ACV, actual cash value, and RCV, the replacement cost value, right? Yep.
Most homeowners policies are going to have replacement costs.
Okay.
Unless they're endorsed with an ACVR, which is an ACV roof endorsement. What that means is that they do not recover the depreciation that is taken from the claim. Whenever we have an insurance claim and it's above $2,500, the insurance carrier will depreciate the materials and sometimes the labor.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do that with an algorithm.
Okay.
Using software.
Okay.
And
Xactimate. Yeah.
And they'll withhold that depreciation until the repairs are completed to the insured's liking.
Okay.
A lot of times they'll say, hey, we do that to make sure the contractor does a good job. That way they didn't get all the money. Yep. They also do it, they want to make sure that the homeowner does the repairs.
Sure.
A lot of times they get that $10,000 check and then they don't replace the roof.
Yep.
And
they're going to buy a boat or a nice vacation or down payment on a car or whatever. Yeah.
That holds their feet to the fire.
Yeah, good.
But you will not recover that depreciation when the repairs are completed if you have an actual cash value policy.
Okay. Yep.
And that's important because that'll come out of your pocket.
Yep.
You probably want to find that out before you file the insurance claim.
And visually, specifically in Xactimate, we see like the greater than, less than signs around the numbers on an ACV policy, meaning that depreciation, is not recovered. Versus in parentheses, if you see the numbers in parentheses, and it will also say recoverable depreciation, which means you will get that back once the job is done.
And they all have different guidelines as far as the max depreciation that they apply. Some of them do it 100%, some of them 75, sometimes 50. And then as of now, the Supreme Court in North Carolina ruled that the insurance carrier can depreciate labor.
Okay.
So some insurance.
So we might see that more often now. Yeah, I think I might have seen it, like starting to see some of it, but still very rare. But yeah, I think I recently saw a scope.
I think you're probably going to see it more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of harsh because it really hurts the value of the claim for the homeowner.
Yeah.
But they have a right to do it, so they'll depreciate the labor.
Interesting. So I don't know if you can answer this question because you're not the one that's actually writing the check, right? You'll write up the scope, you send in your recommendation, and then ultimately that desk adjuster or whoever gets assigned that particular claim is making that final decision based on what your opinion, right?
Yeah, and then they have their own opinion.
Yeah, and sometimes they may disagree with you, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So in regards to then the recoverable, the RCV, or the replacement cost value policies, when because sometimes the homeowners will ask for an estimate from the contractor, right? And it could be because they got that first check and they think that's all they're getting, and they don't realize that they're going to get the rest of the money once the job is complete, and their responsibility, for the loss was already taken out by way of their deductible, right? But I know that there are some people that think, because there's a lot of contractors out there, that are willing to just do the wrong thing, break the law, that they will falsify an invoice to match the scope of work when their estimate that they provided maybe was $1,000 or $2,000 less, right? And so if you're the policyholder and you're owed, let's say, $6,000 still on your recoverable depreciation, right? And then I turn in my final invoice as a contractor to the insurance company, right? And it's $2,000 less, my estimate, like I did the work, I replaced the roof for $2,000 less than what you said that you would do it for, then do you think that the insurance company will just then give them the full depreciation, saying, hey, well, you just got a $2,000 extra money?
So the insured can't profit from an insurance claim.
That's not legal. Yeah.
No. So when they ask for a final invoice, they want to know exactly what the contractor charged.
Okay.
And if it's less than what the insurance claim paid, then yeah, they'll probably withhold a part of that for the depreciation. They're not going to allow them to profit.
Yeah.
In the case that some contractors will help the insured better themselves. Yeah, I mean, by law, the insured should give that money back to the insurance carrier, and they should probably be wary of any contractor that's willing to do that.
Right.
That's
and
probably
that's
not a good contractor.
Yeah, if you're willing to, have a contractor willing to do that and take a shortcut to kind of manipulate the system.
Deductibles are like that with a lot.
Yeah, right, exactly. And there's a lot of them that will advertise that. They'll even put on their business card. We'll eat up to $1,000 of your deductible or whatever.
I warn homeowners about that.
Yeah. So like, what other shortcuts are they willing to do?
That's right.
Maybe on your roof, right?
That's
because
exactly right.
most homeowners don't know the proper way to rebuild a roof, and so there's a lot of ways that contractors can save money by materials. Not doing things the right way, So I'm glad that came up.
Well, there's ways to help with the deductible, and not sell it like that, right? You can put a sign in their yard and save them a little bit of money or something.
So there's some language that we looked up actually that technically is illegal. You're you're not actually supposed to offer any kind of incentive, like that. Yeah. So.
Well, that's important to tell them.
Got to be careful. Yeah. Yep. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen with a lot of, I see. It happens
with all of them.
Yeah. So, well, kind of in closing, what's the most challenging part of being an insurance adjuster when it comes to roof claims? Other than those 12-12 pitches, when it's 98 degrees outside.
Yeah, that is hard. Probably when a contractor goes up there and is telling the insured that they have all this damage and they really don't have that damage. Yeah. What they really have is an old roof.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, and I have to do this all the time, and break the bad news to an insured. And they're sitting there thinking, man, I need this roof.
Right.
I'm scared.
Right.
The roofer's got me so concerned about my roof now. It's 20 years old. It's going to leak. We filed a claim. We're going to probably get, a $20,000 roof paid for. And now he's telling me no. And I just think that, sometimes the hardest part is when a contractor doesn't really necessarily know what they're doing, or they're not honest with the homeowner and let them know, hey, there's a chance you might get it done. It just depends. But really a majority of this damage is just an old roof, and you might not get it bought. When they get them all excited about getting something paid for, that makes it hard because you got to break the news to them.
Yeah, we always tell homeowners there's 3 outcomes, right? Best case scenario, the adjuster agrees with what we found, and you get a full replacement, right? Second option is you get a partial approval, right? Or a repair, right? Which same thing, basically. Or the third is a full denial, So up front, you're setting the proper expectation. And, we train our guys never to say like, oh, this is a slam dunk, 100%, this is going to get bought, no questions asked, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, it's not our decision,
And there's some bad adjusters out there and bad insurance carriers, just like there are bad contractors.
That's right.
So you never know who you're going to get. I mean, I've been surprised many times by desk adjusters. I'm like, how are you not agreeing to this? I don't know how you're not replacing it.
Yeah.
And it just happens, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. So from a homeowner's perspective, like, try to explain to a homeowner, because I've seen this happen so many times where it's like, all right, here's my house, it's gotten denied, my neighbor's house is approved, my other neighbor's house is approved, across the street approved, like every house in the cul-de-sac is approved, and my house is the only one that got denied. I don't get it, so I mean, I can understand the concern, right? But I also know that, all roofing materials is not the same. Their roof maybe the shingles aren't as old. There's just a number of variables. But from your perspective, like, why, like, do you even consider, because a lot of times I think homeowners feel like when they say, and even contractors do it, like, well, all these other houses got approved, so this one should definitely get approved. Like, does that even go into consideration at all, or do you just look at every roof as that roof and you don't really care about anything else that's going on?
I think if there's a huge event,
yeah,
and we know that a huge storm came through and it's caused a catastrophe. I think it probably is fair for the homeowner and the contractor and the insured to probably consider that huge event.
Yeah.
But when, you're talking about, we're just going to knock on a door, go look at a roof and file a claim for something that happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
That's not a huge event, and you're kind of just guessing.
Yeah.
All insurance carriers are different, and adjusters are different. Some of them are loose and some of them are tight. You just never know. Sometimes the materials play a part. Trees play a part. There's things like that. But no, I don't think about the other houses.
Okay.
Generally, I'm just going up there and calling it like I see it.
Yeah.
I think that you should probably get a good data loss and have a good idea how much damage you have before you file the insurance claim.
Okay.
That's what I would tell a homeowner.
All right. Good deal. Well, man, that pretty much wraps up all the questions that I have. Do you have any other final thoughts or comments that you want to make before we conclude?
Generally speaking, how do y'all run into adjusters and get good treatment, or do some of them seem to care about the insureds or even treat the contractors nicely? What percentage do you? I always wondered that.
Yeah, we don't track that, right? That data. We track a lot of numbers. That's not one of them, so I would just be kind of like shooting in the wind here.
Well, you got roofers that come, or your salesmen that come back and be like, man, they're not so nice. And, you file a claim with somebody, you're like, oh, God, I got to go out there.
Yeah. I would say it's more carriers specific than it is adjuster. And I realized, like I was in mortgage banking, a long time ago, like back in that 2008, time frame, and when the whole thing crashed. The guidelines that they had on certain types of loans were so loosey-goosey, right? Like basically you could be a dishwasher that said that you made $100,000 a year as long as you had good credit. Like we didn't verify income. We didn't verify any kind of assets. You know what I mean? They just basically got approved, right? 100% financing. And then of course, you've seen the result of that, right? So I understand that adjusters, they have rules that they have to follow by their employer, the carrier, right? And they have guidelines that they have to follow in order to keep their job. I get that, right? And they want to provide, we're all we work because we have to support our family, right? At the end of the day, right? And so you're going to, go by the rules, just like we have rules here at 5 Star Roofing for our entire staff, sales guys and all of that, and they have to follow them, right? Otherwise they don't work here anymore, right? So yeah, I would say, most insurance adjusters that we work with are good, and I think that they do try to do the right thing. Yeah. And there's a handful that I would say no, they always kind of seem to lean one way, and they seem like they're angry, or whatever. But then, you've got to keep in mind that, they're dealing with so many claims with all these different contractors, and some of them are really bad, and they're aggressive, and they're like, what are you, stupid? You should approve this because of that and this and whatever. And it's like, and so they just got off a call, and then they see our file, and they're already in a bad mood. Yeah, exactly. And so then they're like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to approve this. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with that particular homeowner. They don't have a relationship with that homeowner. They don't know who they are, right? So unfortunately, we kind of see, some of that sometimes, but more and more, I would say, man, we see more ladder assists than anything, 7, 8 out of 10 claims. It is definitely just a ladder assist that's there.
Are they pretty easy going?
Some of them, and some of it's just kind of weird.
Do they know what they're doing?
Sometimes I wonder, man. Sometimes I wonder because it's weird too because we try to be friendly, and sometimes like when it's really hot out, we'll have an extra bottle of water, just try to nice gesture, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. Sometimes the perception could be, oh, you're just doing that because you want me to buy the roof, which I know like a ladder assist doesn't have the authority to buy the roof anyway, right? But we're just trying to be nice. We're not trying to sway anybody, one way or another. Obviously, yeah. If we're calling in a claim, and we think there's a good case. Do we want the roof bought? Well, of course, and so does the homeowner, right? Anyway, hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I just wondered that.
Yep. So cool. Well, any other thoughts?
No,
questions?
so.
No? All right, man. Well, hey, Dude, this is awesome. Thank you. I think it's probably our longest podcast so far. Yeah, but we had a lot to talk about. Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come over here on a Friday, and hang out and answer a bunch of questions. So, well, this concludes this episode of Covered, man. Thanks so much, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was fun. All right, Ed. Boom. It's a wrap.